The massive alien ship dropped out of faster than light. Travel with a flash of blue energy that lit up Earth's night sky. Dr. Lisa Martinez stood on the observation deck of the floating research platform, watching the enormous vessel settle into orbit above the Pacific Ocean. She had never seen anything so beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ship was 3 times larger than any human space station, its hull gleaming with patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. "First contact protocol is active," Captain Jake Sullivan said into his radio as he joined Lisa at the viewing window. His weathered face showed the strain of the past few weeks since humanity had received the first alien message. Earth's governments had been in chaos, trying to prepare for this moment that everyone knew would change everything forever. The alien message had been simple and direct. They called themselves the Galactic Archaeological Commission, and they wanted to study Earth's ancient history. They said humans were a young species that had recently achieved basic space communication technology. They promised to share some of their knowledge in exchange for permission to dig up old human settlements and study how the species had developed. Lisa adjusted her field equipment nervously. As Earth's leading expert on underwater archaeology, she had been chosen to work with the alien team. The idea both excited and scared her. These beings had technology that could travel between stars while humans had barely managed to build a few space stations around their own planet. A smaller ship detached from the main vessel and descended toward their platform. As it landed with barely a whisper of sound, Lisa could see through its transparent sections. 3 very different beings moved inside the craft with fluid grace. The first alien to step out was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. He wore robes that seemed to be made of light itself, shifting colors as he moved. Behind him came a creature that looked like a giant insect walking upright, its multiple eyes scanning everything around it with quick, jerky movements. The third being appeared to be made of living crystal, its body reflecting the morning sunlight in rainbow patterns. "I am Dr. Vexhar of the Altarian Science Collective," the blue-skinned alien said in perfect English, though his voice had a musical quality that no human throat could produce. "These are my colleagues, researcher Kethmos of the Unity Hive and scholar Yolandra of the Crystal Consortium." Jake stepped forward and offered his hand, remembering the briefing about human greeting customs. "Captain Jake Sullivan, representing Earth Defense Command, and this is Dr. Lisa Martinez, our archaeological specialist." Vexhar looked at Jake's extended hand with what might have been amusement before gently touching it with 2 of his long fingers. "We appreciate your cooperation with our research mission. Your species shows promise for future galactic citizenship, though you are still quite primitive by current standards." Lisa felt a flash of irritation at the casual dismissal, but pushed it down. These beings could travel between stars, and humans could barely reach their own moon reliably. She supposed primitive was accurate enough. "We're honored to learn from you," she said diplomatically. "Our government has prepared several archaeological sites for your examination." Kethmos made a series of clicking sounds that Lisa realized was probably laughter. "Your surface ruins will provide some interesting data about tool development and basic social structures. However, our sensors have detected something far more intriguing." The insect-like being gestured toward the ocean with one of its 4 arms. "Deep beneath this body of water, we have found massive metallic structures. They appear to be artificial constructions of significant age and complexity." Lisa frowned. "That's impossible. Our geological surveys show nothing but natural rock formations in this area. The ocean floor here is millions of years old." Yolandra spoke for the first time, her voice sounding like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Your primitive scanning technology would not detect what our instruments can perceive. The structures are buried beneath layers of sediment and rock, far deeper than your species has ever successfully excavated." Vexhar activated a device that projected a 3-dimensional image into the air between them. Lisa's breath caught in her throat as she saw what appeared to be a vast complex of buildings and machinery, laid out in perfect geometric patterns across the ocean floor. "The readings are quite unusual," Vexhar continued, his tone shifting from condescending to puzzled. The materials appear to be composed of alloys that should not exist on a planet of your technological level. More concerning, the energy signatures suggest these structures may still be partially functional after what appears to be millions of years of burial. Jake leaned forward, studying the projection. You're saying there's some kind of ancient city down there? Built by who? That is what we intend to discover, Kethmos replied. The construction methods and materials suggest a level of technology that rivals our own current capabilities. This is most unexpected for a world with such a young sentient species. Lisa felt her heart racing as she stared at the impossible images. Everything she knew about human history said this was impossible. Humans had only developed agriculture 10,000 years ago and basic metalworking a few thousand years after that. There was no way any human civilization could have built something like this. We will begin deep excavation procedures immediately, Vexhar announced. Dr. Martinez, your expertise with underwater environments will be valuable. We shall provide you with the necessary equipment to survive at the depths required. As the aliens began unloading their equipment, Lisa noticed something strange in their behavior. The casual confidence they had shown when speaking about primitive human civilization had been replaced by something that looked almost like nervousness. Vexhar kept checking and rechecking his instruments while Kethmos made agitated clicking sounds under his breath. Whatever they had found down there was making them uncomfortable, and Lisa had the growing suspicion that this archaeological expedition was about to uncover something that would change everything they thought they knew about humanity's past. 3 days into the excavation, Lisa found herself inside an alien submersible that made Earth's most advanced underwater vehicles look like toys. The craft moved through the water without any visible propulsion system, descending toward the ocean floor at depths that should have crushed any human-made vessel. Beside her, Rick Coleman, Earth's best marine engineer, stared in amazement at the alien controls that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. Depth is now 12,000 meters, Vexhar announced from his position at what Lisa assumed was the pilot station. His earlier confidence had completely disappeared, replaced by intention that made his musical voice sound strained and worried. Through the transparent hull, Lisa watched as their lights revealed the first glimpses of the buried structures. What she saw made her forget to breathe for several seconds. Massive curved walls rose from the ocean floor, their surfaces covered in patterns that seemed to flow and shift even in the artificial light. The architecture was unlike anything in human history, combining organic curves with geometric precision that hurt her eyes to look at directly. These readings cannot be correct, Kethmos muttered, his multiple eyes fixed on instruments that displayed symbols Lisa couldn't understand. The energy signatures are indicating active power sources within the structure. That should be impossible after millions of years of submersion. Rick leaned forward to get a better view as their submersible approached what appeared to be an entrance in the side of the massive complex. The materials look like some kind of metal, but I've never seen anything that could maintain structural integrity at these depths for so long. What kind of alloy could possibly? That is not an alloy. Yolandra interrupted, her crystal form dimming noticeably as she studied her own instruments. Our analysis indicates these structures are composed of materials that exist in theoretical models only. The atomic structure should not be stable under normal physical laws. Vexhar guided their craft through the entrance into what appeared to be a vast underwater chamber. As they moved deeper into the complex, emergency lighting systems began activating automatically, bathing everything in a soft blue glow that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The structure is responding to our presence, Vexhar said, his voice barely above a whisper. Internal atmosphere is being generated and maintained at levels suitable for most known life forms. The technology required for such automated systems exceeds anything in our current galactic database. Lisa felt her heart pounding as they docked at what appeared to be a landing platform designed specifically for their type of vessel. The implications were staggering. Whatever civilization had built this place had anticipated visitors arriving in submersibles millions of years before such technology existed. As they exited their craft, Lisa was amazed to find that the chamber contained breathable air. Rick immediately began taking readings with his equipment, while the aliens spread out to examine the walls and control surfaces that lined the vast space. "Lisa, you need to see this," Rick called from near what appeared to be a computer terminal. "These symbols aren't random decorations. They're mathematical formulas. But the calculations are using principles that our best physicists are just starting to theorize about." She joined him at the terminal, which activated as soon as she approached. Symbols and diagrams appeared on the screen, showing what looked like star charts and planetary systems. But what made her blood run cold was the unmistakable outline of Earth's solar system in the center of the display, with detailed notations about each planet's composition and orbital characteristics. "How could anyone have known this information millions of years ago?" she whispered. "Earth's continents would have been in completely different positions. The solar system itself would have looked different." Kethmos approached them, his agitation increasing as his instruments gathered more data. "Dr. Martinez, we need to discuss something of great importance. The genetic scanners in this facility have been analyzing our biological signatures since we entered. They have classified my people and the others as acceptable but secondary life forms. However, they have classified you and Mr. Coleman as primary genetic matches. What does that mean?" Rick asked, though Lisa suspected she didn't want to know the answer. "It means," Vexar said slowly, "that whoever built this place was genetically related to your species. The facility recognizes humans as the intended operators of this technology." Yolandra moved to another console that had activated in response to her presence. Her crystal form was now noticeably dimmer as she accessed information that seemed to disturb her greatly. "The historical records my people maintain include references to a period approximately 4 million years ago, when several species experienced rapid evolutionary advancement. We always assumed this was natural development, but these readings suggest otherwise." Lisa approached the main control panel in the center of the chamber. As soon as her hand touched the surface, the entire room came alive with activity. Holographic displays appeared throughout the space, showing complex diagrams of galactic maps, genetic sequences, and what appeared to be blueprints for technologies that defied human understanding. "The system is requesting DNA verification," a voice said in perfect English. Lisa spun around, looking for the source, before realizing the voice was coming from the facility itself. "Please provide biological sample for identity confirmation and access authorization." Rick grabbed Lisa's arm. "Don't do it. We don't know what this thing might do to you." But before Lisa could respond, the chamber's scanners had already analyzed both humans completely. DNA patterns confirmed. "Welcome home, children of Terra. System activation beginning after 4.7 million years of dormancy." The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Vexar's instruments began beeping frantically as power levels throughout the facility began rising exponentially. Kethmos made distressed clicking sounds as his connection to the Unity Hive was suddenly overwhelmed with information that threatened to overload his mental capacity. "Children of Terra," Yolandra repeated, her voice now barely audible. "The historical records speak of the Terra Dominion." But that was considered mythology. Ancient stories about a species that supposedly guided galactic development in the distant past. Lisa felt the blood drain from her face as the implications became clear. "You're saying that humans built this place? That we're descended from some ancient civilization that existed millions of years ago?" "Not descended from," Vexar corrected, his eyes fixed on readings that seemed to terrify him. "According to these genetic analyses, modern humans are the same species as the builders of this facility. The DNA patterns are identical, though current human genetic structure appears to have been deliberately simplified." Rick stared at the displays showing star charts that covered half the galaxy, all marked with symbols that the facility had labeled as Terran colonial territories. The scope of what they were seeing was beyond anything he had imagined possible. "If this is true," he said slowly, "then humans didn't just build cities on Earth, we built an empire that spanned thousands of star systems." The facility's voice spoke again, causing all of them to freeze. Genetic degradation detected in current human specimens. Initiating restoration protocols. Please stand by for evolutionary enhancement procedures. Alarms began sounding throughout the chamber as the aliens' equipment detected massive energy buildups in systems throughout the complex. Whatever process the facility was beginning, it was clear that their discovery had triggered something that had been waiting millions of years to activate. Lisa realized with growing horror that they hadn't just found ruins of an ancient human civilization. They had found a sleeping giant that was now beginning to wake up. Lisa grabbed the nearest support rail as the entire facility shuddered with energy discharges that made the water around them glow with an eerie light. Emergency systems throughout the complex were activating after millions of years of dormancy, and the result was both beautiful and terrifying. Holographic displays materialized in every direction, showing star maps that covered regions of space the aliens had never explored. "This is impossible," Vexar whispered, his instruments barely able to process the information flooding through the facility's networks. These star charts showed detailed knowledge of galactic structure extending beyond our current exploration boundaries. Whoever created this possessed technology that makes our most advanced civilizations appear primitive. Rick was studying a series of technical diagrams that appeared on the wall near him. The designs showed massive ships that dwarfed anything in the current galactic fleet and weapon systems that seemed capable of moving planets. "Lisa, these aren't just architectural plans. These are military specifications for an entire space navy." Kethmos had become increasingly agitated as his connection to the Unity Hive processed the implications of what they were discovering. His clicking sounds had become rapid and distressed as information flowed through his collective consciousness. "The Hive is experiencing significant disturbance. The knowledge contained in this facility contradicts fundamental assumptions about galactic history and development." Yolandra approached a console that displayed what appeared to be genetic modification protocols. Her crystal form had dimmed to almost complete transparency as she absorbed information that challenged everything her people believed about their own origins. These records indicate that several species in our galaxy were not naturally evolved. They appeared to have been genetically engineered and guided through accelerated development processes. Lisa felt sick as she began to understand what Yolandra was suggesting. "You're saying that humans created other intelligent species?" "Not created," the facility's voice responded, making everyone jump. "Guided, enhanced, uplifted from primitive forms to achieve consciousness and technological capability. Standard procedure for species development programs throughout Terran colonial territories." The main display screen showed a timeline that stretched back millions of years. Lisa watched in horrified fascination as the progression showed humanity spreading across the galaxy, establishing colonies on thousands of worlds, and systematically uplifting dozens of species from basic animal intelligence to spacefaring civilizations. "The Altarian homeworld," Vexar said in a voice barely above a whisper. "These records show Terran genetic modification programs on my people's planet 3.8 million years ago. We always believed our rapid evolutionary development was natural selection." Rick found himself looking at detailed files on every major galactic species, complete with genetic modification records and psychological profiles. The scope of human influence was staggering. They didn't just guide a few species. They shaped the development of almost every intelligent race in this part of the galaxy. "Standard Galactic Development Protocol," the facility confirmed. Terran Dominion policy required careful species management to ensure stable galactic civilization and prevent destructive conflicts between developing intelligences. Kethmos made a sound that Lisa realized was the insectoid equivalent of panic. "The Unity Hive is fragmenting under this information load. My people's collective consciousness cannot process the concept that we were created as experimental subjects." "You were not experimental subjects," the facility's voice said with something that sounded almost like emotion. "You were children. All uplifted species were considered part of the extended Terran family. Great care was taken to ensure each race developed unique strengths and perspectives that would contribute to galactic stability. Yolandra accessed another terminal, her form now barely visible as she struggled with information that was rewriting her people's entire understanding of their place in the universe. These files contained detailed records of the Crystal Consortium's development. We were enhanced from simple silicon-based mineral formations on our homeworld. Our entire sense of identity as an ancient and wise species is based on fabricated history. Lisa approached the central command console, drawn by displays showing Earth itself millions of years in the past. The planet looked completely different, with massive cities floating in the atmosphere and artificial structures visible from space. What happened to all of this? How did humanity go from ruling the galaxy to barely being able to leave our own planet? The facility's voice took on a tone of deep sadness. Access to classified historical records requires higher authorization levels. Please provide genetic identification for senior command personnel. I'm the only human here, Lisa said. Just tell me what happened to my people. Scanners activated around her, analyzing her DNA with far greater precision than before. After several moments, the facility spoke again. Dr. Lisa Martinez, genetic pattern indicates descendant of Senior Research Director Elena Martinez, Terran. Genetic Engineering Division. Access granted to historical archives. The room filled with holographic images showing the height of Terran civilization. Lisa watched in awe as the displays revealed cities that spanned entire continents, space, stations larger than Earth's moon, and technologies that seemed to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. But as the timeline progressed, something began to go wrong. The Consciousness Integration Project, the facility explained as the images showed. Terran scientists working with massive machines that bent space and time around them. An attempt to merge biological intelligence with the quantum field structures that underlie physical reality. The goal was to achieve a form of existence that transcended physical limitations. Rick watched as the holographic timeline showed the experiments growing larger and more complex. Something went wrong, didn't it? The integration process began to affect the fundamental structure of space-time throughout the local galactic cluster. Reality itself became unstable in regions where the experiments were conducted. Entire star systems began experiencing temporal anomalies and dimensional fractures. Lisa felt her heart sinking as she began to understand. The Terrans had to stop the experiments before they destroyed everything. Stopping the experiments was insufficient, the facility continued. The damage to spacetime was progressive and would eventually have rendered the entire galaxy uninhabitable. The only solution was to eliminate the source of the quantum resonance patterns that were causing the instability. The source being Terran consciousness itself, Yolandra whispered, her crystal form now almost completely transparent. Correct. The advanced neural patterns that allowed Terrans to manipulate quantum fields were the cause of the reality distortions. The decision was made to implement a species-wide genetic regression protocol. Terran genetic structure was simplified, neural capacity was reduced, and all advanced technology was either destroyed or placed in dormant storage facilities. Vexar stared at his instruments, which were detecting massive energy signatures throughout the ocean as other facilities began activating in response to Lisa's presence. You voluntarily made yourselves primitive to save the galaxy from destruction. The regression was intended to be temporary, the facility explained. These storage facilities were designed to preserve Terran knowledge and technology until the species could safely evolve back to its original capabilities. The awakening protocols were programmed to activate when human genetic patterns indicated sufficient mental development to handle the responsibility of advanced technology. Rick felt a chill as he realized what this meant. And now we've triggered those protocols. The facilities are waking up because they think we're ready to become what we used to be. Affirmative. Genetic analysis indicates current human neural patterns have developed sufficient complexity to begin restoration procedures. However, implementation of full restoration protocols requires confirmation from current galactic authority structures. Lisa felt the weight of impossible responsibility settling on her shoulders. What if the other species don't want humanity to regain its former abilities? What if they're afraid of what we might become? As if in answer to her question, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The display screens showed dozens of alien ships entering Earth's solar system, their weapon systems charging as they approached the planet where humanity's sleeping giant was beginning to stir. Incoming transmission from Galactic Fleet Command, the facility announced. They are demanding immediate cessation of all awakening protocols and surrender of all human personnel for protective custody. Lisa realized that humanity's children had come home, and they were terrified of their parents waking up. The facility's walls began displaying images from cameras positioned around Earth's orbital space. Lisa watched in growing alarm as more alien warships continued to arrive, their formations taking aggressive positions around the planet. The peaceful archaeological mission had transformed into what looked like preparation for a military blockade. Guardian Prime activation sequence initiated, the facility announced as new sections of the complex came online around them. Primary artificial intelligence systems have been dormant for 4,700,000 years. Full system integration will require approximately 72 hours. A holographic figure materialized in the center of the chamber, appearing as a tall human wearing robes that seemed to be made of flowing energy. The image flickered and stabilized as ancient processors struggled to handle the massive computational load of consciousness simulation. "Dr. Martinez," the holographic figure said in a voice that carried the weight of ages. "I am Guardian Prime, the central artificial intelligence tasked with preserving Terran knowledge and guiding the eventual restoration of your species. I regret that circumstances have forced an early activation of our protocols." Rick stared at the holographic figure with a mixture of awe and fear. "You're saying this thing has been waiting down here for millions of years?" Guardian Prime and thousands of similar facilities throughout the galaxy have maintained watch over human development while your species recovered from the genetic regression procedures, the AI explained. The plan was for restoration to occur gradually over many generations, allowing time for your people to demonstrate wisdom and maturity. Vexar was monitoring communications from the alien fleet above them, his face growing more troubled by the minute. The Galactic Council has classified this situation as a potential extinction-level threat. They are demanding immediate access to all Terran facilities and the right to determine whether humanity should be allowed to continue its development. "That decision is not theirs to make," Guardian Prime responded, his image solidifying as more processing power came online. The uplifted species were granted independence and self-governance as a gift from their creators. However, the decision regarding Terran restoration remains with the Terran people themselves. Lisa felt overwhelmed by the responsibility being placed on her shoulders. "You're asking me to make a choice that affects not just humanity, but every intelligent species in the galaxy. I'm asking you to undergo the trials that will determine whether current humanity possesses the wisdom to handle their inheritance," Guardian Prime corrected. "The restoration protocols cannot be activated by command alone. They require proof that the species has learned from the mistakes that led to the original regression." Kethmos was struggling to maintain his connection to the Unity Hive as panic spread through his people's collective consciousness. The Hive is fragmenting under the stress of these revelations. "My people cannot accept that their entire history and identity are based on Terran genetic manipulation." Yelandra had become almost completely transparent as her species. Historical archives were accessed and found to be largely fabricated cover stories. "The Crystal Consortium is in chaos. Our entire civilization is built on the belief that we are an ancient and naturally evolved species. Learning that we are artificial constructs created by another race has shattered our fundamental sense of identity." Guardian Prime turned his attention to the alien team members. "You were not artificial constructs. You were children who grew beyond what your creators imagined possible. Each uplifted species developed unique characteristics and capabilities that surpassed original projections. The Terrans did not create servants or copies of themselves, but independent races with their own strengths and destinies. Rick was examining technical displays that showed the scope of the awakening process. How many of these facilities are there? And what happens if we pass your tests? 743 primary facilities remain operational throughout. Formerly Terran space, Guardian Prime replied. Each facility contains preserved knowledge, technology, and genetic templates necessary for species restoration. If humanity proves worthy, these resources will be gradually released over several generations, allowing your people to reclaim their place as guides and protectors of galactic civilization. And if we don't pass? Lisa asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Then the facilities will remain dormant indefinitely, and humanity will continue its current developmental path without interference. However, the current situation suggests that choice may no longer be available. The chamber's displays showed the alien fleet taking increasingly aggressive formations around Earth. Several ships were charging weapon systems that could sterilize entire continents. Dr. Martinez, Guardian Prime said, his image becoming more solid and detailed as additional systems came online. The first trial must begin immediately. The Galactic Fleet will not wait for extended deliberation before taking action they believe necessary to protect their civilizations. Lisa approached the central testing chamber that had risen from the floor of the facility. What kind of trial? You must demonstrate that humanity has developed beyond the flaws that led to the consciousness integration disaster. The trial will present you with scenarios requiring wisdom, restraint, and the ability to place the welfare of others above personal or species advancement. Rick grabbed Lisa's arm as she moved toward the testing chamber. You don't have to do this. We could try to negotiate with the fleet, explain that we're not a threat. The alien fleet's communications indicate they consider any restoration of Terran capabilities to be an unacceptable risk, Guardian Prime observed. Several species are advocating for complete sterilization of Earth to prevent the possibility of Terran resurgence. Vexhar looked up from his communications equipment with a grim expression. My government has authorized the use of planet killing weapons if necessary. The fear of Terran restoration has overcome all other considerations. Lisa realized that the choice was no longer whether humanity would undergo restoration, but whether they would survive long enough for the process to matter. The alien species that humans had lifted from primitive intelligence were now so terrified of their creators that they were prepared to commit genocide to prevent their return. Begin the trials, she told Guardian Prime. If there's any chance of stopping this without bloodshed, we have to try. As Lisa entered the testing chamber, she felt the weight of millions of years of human history pressing down on her. Her decisions over the next few hours would determine not only the fate of humanity, but the future of every intelligent species in the galaxy. The chamber sealed around her, and Guardian Prime's voice echoed through her mind as the first trial began. Remember, Dr. Martinez, that true power lies not in the ability to dominate others, but in the wisdom to know when restraint serves a greater purpose than action. Outside the facility, the alien fleet continued to grow as more ships arrived from across the galaxy, all of them united by a single terrifying possibility that their creators were about to reclaim the power they had voluntarily surrendered millions of years ago. Inside the testing chamber, Lisa found herself experiencing visions so real that she forgot she was in a simulation. Guardian Prime was showing her the height of Terran civilization, and the experience was overwhelming. She watched massive space habitats that housed billions of beings, saw planets being moved into more favorable orbits, and witnessed technologies that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality itself. This was the power your ancestors wielded. Guardian Prime's voice echoed around her. The ability to reshape worlds, to guide the development of entire species, to manipulate the very fabric of space and time. With such capabilities, the temptation to play God becomes almost irresistible. The vision shifted to show her the consciousness integration project in its final stages. Terran scientists had discovered how to merge biological intelligence with Quantum field structures effectively allowing consciousness to exist independently of physical form. The potential was incredible, but Lisa could see the growing instability as reality itself began to warp around the experiments. Your first trial, Guardian Prime announced as the chamber around Lisa transformed into a perfect replica of the original laboratory. You possess complete knowledge of the integration project and its flaws. You have the power to correct the mistakes that led to the disaster. Do you proceed with the experiments, confident in your ability to succeed where your ancestors failed? Lisa stood before control panels that could grant her godlike power over reality itself. The temptation was enormous. With this technology, humanity could become beings of pure energy, immortal and omnipotent. They could protect every species in the galaxy, solve every problem, eliminate suffering and death forever, but as she reached toward the controls, she remembered the records showing entire star systems consumed by temporal anomalies and dimensional fractures. Her ancestors had possessed the same confidence, the same certainty that they could control forces beyond comprehension. No, she said, stepping back from the controls. Some boundaries shouldn't be crossed, no matter what benefits we think we can achieve. Guardian Prime's approval was evident in his voice. Wisdom. Your ancestors took centuries to reach the same conclusion. You have passed the first trial. The chamber shifted again, showing her Earth as it was now, surrounded by the alien fleet. But this time, Lisa had access to all of Guardian Prime's capabilities. She could activate weapon systems that would turn the attacking ships into vapor, or deploy technologies that would make the alien species dependent on human guidance for survival. Your second trial, Guardian Prime announced. The species you helped create now threaten to destroy you out of fear. You have the power to force them into submission, to reclaim your position as their guides and protectors whether they consent or not. The survival of your species may depend on decisive action. Lisa stared at the tactical displays showing how easily humanity could reassert dominance over their former children. The alien weapons that seemed so threatening were primitive compared to Terran technology. She could end the crisis with a simple command: restore humanity to its rightful place as rulers of the galaxy, but as she considered the option, she thought about what that would mean for the species that had developed their own identities and cultures over millions of years. They were no longer the primitive beings that Terrans had uplifted. They had become something unique and valuable in their own right. They have the right to be afraid, she said finally. And they have the right to make their own choices, even if those choices threaten us. I won't force them back into subservience, even if that choice leads to humanity's extinction. Guardian Prime pressed. Even then, Lisa replied, the moment we start forcing our will on others for their own good, we become the very thing they're afraid of. The simulation shifted once more, showing her visions of possible futures. In some, humanity regained its former power and ruled with wisdom and benevolence. In others, the restoration process led to new conflicts and eventually to the same mistakes that had caused the original regression. But in a few timelines, she saw something different. Humans and aliens working together as equals, each species contributing their unique strengths to solve problems that neither could handle alone. Your final trial, Guardian Prime said as the chamber filled with representatives of every species in the galaxy. You must choose the future path for humanity. Full restoration to your former capabilities, allowing you to guide galactic development as your ancestors did. Continued limitation. Preserving the current balance of power at the cost of humanity's potential. Or something entirely new, a path that has never been attempted before. Lisa looked at the gathered representatives, seeing fear and hope warring in their expressions. She thought about everything she had learned about humanity's past and everything she hoped for humanity's future. I choose partnership, she said. Gradual restoration, but with the knowledge and consent of the other species. Let humanity earn back its capabilities by proving we can work with our children as equals rather than ruling over them as superiors. Guardian Prime was silent for a long moment. That path carries the greatest risk of failure. It requires trust between species that currently fear each other. It demands that humanity prove worthy of their inheritance while their former children overcome millions of years of independent development. But it's the only path that honors both what humanity was and what the other species have become. Lisa replied, "We can't pretend that millions of years of separation never happened. The galaxy has grown beyond what our ancestors imagined." The testing chamber began to dissolve around her as Guardian Prime processed her responses. "Dr. Martinez, you have demonstrated wisdom that surpasses many of your ancestors. However, the implementation of your chosen path requires acceptance from the galactic community. Currently, they are preparing to eliminate humanity rather than risk your restoration." Lisa found herself back in the main chamber where Rick, Vexar, Kethmos, and Yolandra waited anxiously. The alien team members looked haggard and stressed as they struggled with the implications of everything they had learned. "The trials are complete," Guardian Prime announced to the group. "Dr. Martinez has chosen a path of gradual restoration through cooperation rather than dominance. However, this choice is meaningless if the galactic fleet destroys Earth before the process can begin." Rick approached Lisa with relief evident on his face. "What happens now?" "Now we try to convince a galaxy full of terrified children that their parents can be trusted not to hurt them," Lisa replied, looking at the tactical displays showing hundreds of alien warships in attack formation around Earth. Guardian Prime's image solidified as he prepared to make contact with the fleet commanders. "The next few hours will determine whether humanity's second chance at greatness ends before it can truly begin." As communication channels opened to the alien fleet, Lisa realized that the hardest part of humanity's restoration wasn't going to be proving they deserved their former power. It was going to be convincing their children that they didn't want to use it. The communication system crackled to life as Guardian Prime established contact with the alien fleet. Lisa watched the main display as hundreds of ship commanders appeared in a massive holographic conference, their expressions ranging from fear to rage to desperate determination. She recognized the faces of species that humanity had helped evolve from primitive creatures millions of years ago, now grown into proud civilizations that saw their creators as an existential threat. "Fleet commanders?" Guardian Prime began, his ancient voice carrying across the communication channels to every ship. "I am Guardian Prime, artificial intelligence construct of the former Terran Dominion. I speak for humanity in this critical moment." Admiral Zethka of the Altarian Fleet, a descendant of Vexar people, spoke first. "Terran Construct, we demand immediate cessation of all awakening protocols and surrender of human subjects for containment. The risk of Terran restoration cannot be tolerated." "I understand your fear," Guardian Prime replied calmly. "Your species remember the legends of Terran power, distorted by millions of years into stories of gods who shaped reality at will. But I offer you something your legends do not contain: the truth of what humanity truly was and what they choose to become." Rick moved to stand beside Lisa as she prepared to address the fleet directly. "Are you sure about this? Once we start this process, there's no going back." "There's already no going back," Lisa replied, watching as more ships continued to arrive from across the galaxy. "They're too afraid to let us continue existing as we are, and too afraid to let us become what we were. The only choice is to find a middle path." Guardian Prime gestured to Lisa. "Dr. Lisa Martinez has undergone the trials that determine worthiness for restoration. She speaks for current humanity in this matter." Lisa stepped forward, feeling the weight of billions of lives resting on her next words. "Fleet commanders, I know you're afraid. You've discovered that your entire understanding of galactic history is wrong. That the species you thought were your equals or superiors were actually created by primitive humans from a small planet you barely considered worthy of notice." The holographic images showed the discomfort her words caused among the alien commanders. Several species representatives began arguing among themselves as the implications of humanity's true nature continued to sink in. "But here's what your fear is making you forget," Lisa continued. "You're not the same species that humanity guided millions of years ago. You've grown beyond what our ancestors ever imagined possible. You've developed unique cultures, technologies, and ways of thinking that surpass anything in our ancient records. Commander Hive Prime of the Unity Collective, Kethmos S. Superior, interrupted with rapid clicking sounds that translated as intense agitation. Human words mean nothing. Terran power cannot be allowed to return. The genetic templates show your potential for consciousness manipulation and reality distortion. Such capabilities threaten the fabric of space-time itself? That's exactly why humanity chose to limit itself in the first place, Lisa replied. We recognize that some powers are too dangerous to wield, even with the best intentions. The genetic regression wasn't forced on us by enemies. It was a choice we made to protect everyone, including ourselves. Yolandra stepped forward, her crystal form still dim but more stable than before. Dr. Martinez speaks truth. The historical records show that Terran regression was voluntary. They chose to sacrifice their civilization to prevent galactic destruction. Admiral Zethka's expression remained skeptical. And now they seek to reclaim what they abandoned. How can we trust that they will not repeat the mistakes that forced the original regression? Guardian Prime activated the chamber's display systems, showing the complete historical record of the consciousness integration disaster. Because they have learned from those mistakes, Dr. Martinez was given the opportunity to pursue the integration project with full knowledge of its flaws. She chose restraint over power. The alien commanders watched in fascination and horror as the displays showed the true scope of the ancient catastrophe. Reality itself had begun to unravel as Terran consciousness. Experiments destabilized the quantum foundations of space-time. She was also given the opportunity to force your submission through superior technology, Guardian Prime continued. Again, she chose cooperation over domination. Lisa addressed the fleet again, her voice carrying the conviction of someone who had seen the potential consequences of absolute power. I'm not asking you to trust humanity because we were your creators. I'm asking you to trust us because we're choosing to be your partners. Vexhar activated his own communication system, speaking directly to his people's representatives. Admiral Zethka, I have witnessed human behavior throughout this crisis. They could have activated their weapon systems the moment they discovered their heritage. Instead, they sought understanding and cooperation. The debate among the fleet commanders intensified as species representatives argued over the appropriate response. Some called for immediate planetary sterilization, while others advocated for negotiation and gradual trust-building. Lisa made her final appeal to the assembled fleet. We're proposing something that has never been tried before in galactic history. Gradual restoration over generations, with each step requiring approval from the galactic community. Humanity will earn back its capabilities by proving we can use them responsibly, and if we refuse, demanded Admiral Zethka, then the facilities remain dormant and humanity continues as we are, Lisa replied. We won't force restoration on an unwilling galaxy. But we also won't accept genocide as the price of your fear. Guardian Prime added his support to Lisa's proposal. The restoration protocols can be modified to include external oversight. Each phase of human development can be monitored and approved by galactic consensus. This ensures that restoration serves the greater good rather than human ambition alone. The communication channels fell silent as the fleet commanders considered the unprecedented offer. Finally, Admiral Zethka spoke for the group. This proposal requires extensive deliberation. The fleet will withdraw to safe distance while the Galactic Council considers these matters. As the alien ships began moving away from Earth, Rick let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Do you think they'll accept it? Some will, Lisa replied, watching the tactical displays as the immediate threat of planetary destruction receded. Others will take more convincing. But we've bought ourselves time to prove that humanity can be trusted with our inheritance. Guardian Prime's image flickered as he began the complex process of modifying restoration, protocols to include external oversight mechanisms. The path you have chosen is difficult, Dr. Martinez. It may take centuries for humanity to fully reclaim its former capabilities. Good, Lisa said, surprising everyone. Power that takes time to earn is power that's less likely to be abused. Our ancestors tried to accomplish too much too quickly. We'll take a different approach. 6 months later, Lisa stood on the observation deck of the first joint human-alien research station, watching as ships from dozens of species worked together to explore other Terran facilities throughout the galaxy. The fear hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had been replaced by cautious curiosity as humanity slowly began to demonstrate their commitment to cooperation over domination. The first phase of restoration had begun, with human genetic templates being gradually enhanced under careful alien supervision. Children born with the new modifications displayed increased intelligence and intuitive understanding of advanced physics, but these abilities developed slowly and naturally rather than being imposed artificially. Rick joined her at the observation window, marveling at the sight of human and alien engineers working side by side on projects that neither species could have accomplished alone. Think our ancestors would approve of what we're doing. I think they'd be proud that we learned from their mistakes, Lisa replied. They gave up everything to protect the galaxy. The least we can do is make sure their sacrifice meant something. As she watched a young human child with enhanced genetics playing with alien youngsters in the station's recreation area, Lisa realized that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't going to be reclaiming their former power. It was going to be building something better than what they had lost, a galactic civilization where creators and children worked together as equals, each contributing their unique strengths to challenges that neither could face alone. The panic had passed, replaced by the harder but more rewarding work of building trust across the vast distances between stars and the even vaster distances between different ways of thinking. Humanity was coming home, not as conquerors returning to reclaim their empire, but as parents learning to see their children as the remarkable beings they had become.